Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the next in our hopefully perpetual series of classic film scores. And I got to tell you, today we have one of the most classic of all the classic film scores. Not just the score, but the film. I'm talking about Robin Hood, with the score by Erich Wolfgang Korngold. This was, I think, an Oscar-winning score. Yeah, I think it was. That and what were the other ones he won for? The other one was King's Row. I think he won 2 Oscars. Anyway, that doesn't make any difference. Wow. This is some production. And it has a fascinating story behind it. For Korngold, I mean, not the making of the film. The film is a classic. I mean, you've got Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland, and everybody knows the story. And he makes a cameo in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Remember the cartoon? Arise, sirloin of beef, clonk. Arise. You know what I mean, right? And then you've got the, Little John, the big goofy, don't you worry, never fear, Robin Hood will soon be here. And then he appears, going, welcome to Sherwood. That's how I first found out about Robin Hood, watching Warner Brothers cartoons. But this, oh yes, this is another story entirely. Korngold was in Europe in 1939, the fateful year 1939, in Vienna, when he was working on getting his latest opera. I think it was Die Catherine, one of those, produced. And, I mean, if I'm wrong, one of you will tell me anyway. Please don't. No one cares. The point is this. It was only because he was summoned back to Hollywood at the last minute to do Robin Hood that he escaped from Vienna after the Anschluss. I mean, he was like literally on the last train out. It was quite a story. And then he had to get his family to safety, too, because one of his sons and his son's family was left behind temporarily. But fortunately, his dad, Julius, the music critic, Julius Korngold, was smart enough to get some extra tickets and make bookings so that everybody was able to get out of Vienna before the borders were sealed and it became impossible for Jews to escape. So thank God for Hollywood and this movie. Now, this movie is so famous, it really needs no description from me, and I don't have to give you a plot summary, and it's an original screenplay anyway. So that's just wonderful. What's so fabulous about this, and this is amazing, this is the reconstructed complete score with William Stromberg and the Moscow Symphony Orchestra and John Morgan, who did the reconstruction. This is unbelievable. It's 82 minutes and 43 seconds on one CD. Now, granted, 4 minutes and 17 seconds of that is the original theatrical trailer, which is awfully nice to have. It's kind of like a mini summary of the entire score. But 80 some odd minutes. And the thing about Korngold's scores that sets them apart from so many of his colleagues is that even where the music is not continuous in the movie, it's written so as to be continuous harmonically. I don't mean tune stops and picks up where it left off. What I mean is that you can join the whole thing together and it makes a beautifully harmonious, seamless whole for the most part. There's always exceptions and there were cuts and things that they did, but the way that Korngold conceived this stuff is like a giant tone poem. And yes, some of it is a little repetitious. And yes, you get to hear the leitmotifs because he was a Wagnerian composer. Every character has a leitmotif, that comes back over and over and over. But wow, what an amazing, amazing piece of work this is. And he had a few weeks to do it. As usual with these things, it was insane. And he didn't want to do it. He came back from Vienna because he had agreed to do it. And then when he saw the movie and realized it was this rousing swashbuckler, he tried to get out of it. He really did. He didn't think it was his style of film at all. But of course, somehow they talked him into it and they forced him to sit down and do it. And what he wrote was one of the great masterpieces of the cinema. And it had that amazing Korngoldian sound, the sound by which all subsequent Hollywood, romantic thriller, action, type movies became known. It really was a characteristic sound. I mean, Korngold wrote for Hollywood exactly the same way he wrote his operas and everything else in Vienna. There wasn't any difference. It was that decadent, late romantic, glittery, almost illuminated from within sound. And he produces that sound by very, very skillful use of extra instruments a lot, like the Celesta, which is practically a concerto. I mean, not solo, but doubling all of the other parts to put a little silvery sheen behind the sound all the time. Or the harp, used constantly, but not always where you'd expect it. And mallet instruments, the marimba, which was kind of a new sound in those days. And Korngold used it very, very extensively. You also hear it a lot in his symphony. He had these characteristic sort of doublings and colorations that gave the whole orchestra a kind of sheen for which his music was famous ever since, sometimes to its detriment. People mocked it. People said it was schlocky and schmaltzy and schlumpy and all those schluff, all those Yiddishisms. But you know what? No one cares anymore, because now it simply sounds characteristic and brilliant and ideal for its purpose. Boy, is this a good score. One of the things about Korngold's melodies that people don't often remark is that he was very much a practitioner of what you might call wrong note romanticism. He sounds a lot like Prokofiev in places in that respect. You have these tunes that are obviously heroic or romantic tunes, but there are a couple notes in there that just give them a little bit of a kick that make them sound just a little bit awkward, a little bit quizzical, even a little bit ironic. And he doesn't get credit for that. Everyone just says he's a sentimental, schlub, another slut word. But he's not. No, he really isn't. I mean, the main march theme at the beginning of this, chung, cha, 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 chung, da, ba, da, dum, ba, da, 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 da. It's a very Prokofievian tune in its way. And it's unforgettable once you hear it, and we're going to, believe you me. But I want to play a few samples here, just so you get a sense of just how magical this piece is. First, remember I said that Korngold's tracks are written so that they basically follow on each other logically. So I have a little example of that. This is tracks 4 and 5, and I'm playing you the end of track 4 and the beginning of track 5, which are completely different in character. Track 4 is the banquet, where Maid Marian is flirting with Prince John or whatever, and there's sort of like a kind of sentimental love music at the end of it. And then it switches to the exterior of the castle, where Robin Hood is whizzing around outside. He's going to show up at the banquet and dump a deer on the table. This is one of the more famous scenes. But those are two completely separate things. But if you listen to the end of track 4 and the beginning of track 5, one just picks up, harmonically speaking, where the other leaves off. There's no clash at all. It follows, it seems, with great inevitability and naturalness. And here is that moment. I just want you to hear it. You'll hear exactly what I'm talking about. See what I mean? They could have been continuous. You could knit them together or make them separate movements of a symphony, and you would feel the harmonic logic at work behind the music. And that's what gives these scores such cohesiveness and makes them so wonderful, completely independently of the films. And one of the things about these great Hollywood composers, all of them, not just Korngold, of course, is again, we can only marvel at how fabulously they wrote and carefully and with such detail and love they wrote music which most people weren't going to pay much attention to, a lot of which was never going to be heard at all, and which, given the technology of the time, couldn't be heard even if you wanted to. But the quality is there, and that's what makes them so wonderful to listen to now. So I just want to play a couple other tracks, and then turn you loose on this 82-minute Naxos extravaganza. Oh boy, was this a great movie. I remember watching this with my dad. I mean, these are so much fun, and the music added so much to it. It fit like a hand in a glove. I mean, it was just somehow an inevitable part of the action and fused into the scene. And it's so nice that when you defuse it, it's just as wonderful. It really, really is. Let's listen to a bit of the love scene. Yes, the love scene. This is Korngold at his romantic, schlockiest, unashamed, unembarrassed best. It is totally, totally gorgeous. But when you hear the music separately, listen to the amazing orchestral detail. The things he does to just make the music glow with that inner warmth. It's so marvelous. So here's a bit of the love scene between Robin and Maid Marian. Gorgeous. And it's a long track. I think it's like 7 minutes. I mean, 6 minutes and 25 seconds. I mean, it's continuous, serious. I mean, it's a serious slow movement all by itself. It has shape. It has just gorgeous melody. It's amazing. And now we absolutely must hear, because it's, the trademark, some of the swashbuckling tournament music. Yeah, the tournament. Remember the tournament? The super cool tournament? He rides in with the guys and wins the tournament. And oh, wow. These were such iconic scenes and fabulous sort of set pieces that Korngold found the ideal music for. One of the things that's so cool about this particular scene is that, I mean, it's full of fanfares that repeat themselves endlessly. But again, harmonically, they're kind of interesting. It's not just, the usual tonics and dominants, you know what I mean? There's just arpeggios. I mean, they are, but they have a character to them. They have a character of them all their own, and one that somehow fits with the not quite serious sort of fabulosity of the entire plot and the whole movie. So here's a bit of The Tournament. You may have noticed you can hear when Robin Hood and the merry men come in because you hear their march. There it was. Do 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 ba do. You'll never get it out of your head. It's such a fabulous score. It really is. I remember when this came out. Originally, it was on Marco Polo. Now it's on Naxos. And it was such a thrilling moment to be able to hear this stuff in a really good sound and a really good performance. Again, it's William Stromberg of the Moscow Symphony. And boy, oh boy, I mean, we are so lucky to be living in a time when all of this stuff is being made available and reconstructed. And it takes a lot of work. Tons of this stuff perished in the great Universal Studios fire. All the parts were lost. But they had to go back to the composer's sketches. They had to find, maybe not this entirely or this one, but a lot of these. It's such a labor of love by dedicated people like Stromberg and Morgan, and there will be others that we'll be talking about. Adriano, people like that, who really, really cared about rescuing one of the great legacies of 20th century music. And it's a uniquely 20th century legacy. I mean, yes, it's incidental music. It grows off of or, evolved out of the 19th century theatrical music written for plays and operas and all those other things. But this is a truly 20th century medium, and thank God it hasn't all disappeared. I mean, the studios would have thrown it away. I mean, what if that's how they treated it? It makes you shudder to think about it. So grab your Robin Hood. Keep on listening. Take care.